we are people of faith, that we recognize God has a calling in our life, how do we listen and be attentive to how do I respond to that in any given season?
All of the elements of my life up till then being utilised in that space. And I feel like it felt a bit meandering to get there, but when you turn around and look back, it's like a dead straight line, you know, that everything was leading to that. Yeah, we're here. You're listening to Welcome to Ministry. This is a podcast of the BUV Generations Network. I am Kimberly Smith from the BUV Support Hub, and I have with me
Adam Southwood. I am an engagement pastor at New Hope, one of the churches in the Baptist Network.
Yep.
Kim, it is so great to finally be here.
This is the result of a lot of times when you and I are just hanging out and talking and we say, we should start a podcast.
Yeah, other people
Need
to hear this. And not from a self-centered point of view. This is we're not doing this for clout. I think that there's just some real value in the conversations that you have with other pastors in the different aspects or different walks that you've got into ministry.
Yeah.
I think there's some real value in having these conversations.
And we have a real heart for the people that don't have network around them, whether you're in an isolated environment, or you're the only volunteer or a key leader, or you sole pastor, or you don't have a pastor, or you have a pastor who's you don't connect with so much, like that you don't have these opportunities to unpack some of this stuff. And so we're really hoping that this is going to be a useful conversation that we're inviting you guys into to join us as we just unpack some of these things that are pertinent to being newer in ministry, whatever that role is and however you got to it, that sense of the welcome to ministry, some of those things we didn't get on the brochure, some of the things that weren't as articulated, maybe giving some language and some help in terms of how you might have conversations about these things with other people, with, leadership boards and all that sort of stuff, with parents and families, whatever ministries you're involved in. So that's the vibe that we're on about, and we're keen.
So good. I think the thing that is really driving me with passion in this space is just thinking, man, I wish that I had some of this available to me as I was stepping into ministry. Yeah. And very quickly, I think my first big lesson that I learned as I was stepping into vocational ministry was the people that you have around you help shape you in such an incredible way. And so once that kind of clicked for me, I started actively seeking out who can I have around me, who can I have in my corner, who can be encouraging me, challenging me, and just helping me grow. Who can I do this journey with? Yeah, that's good. So we want to be partners on the journey with you. Take us with you in the car, on your bike, wherever you are at the moment, having a listen. We're glad you are here. Now, we'll talk about welcome to ministry. Yeah. What was your welcome to ministry? Everybody seems to come to these ministry roles through a whole variety of pathways, and what was yours? Tell us about how you got to be in ministry. Yeah, I think I had a pretty interesting walk into vocational ministry, so working in a church context, and I was really set throughout high school that I wanted to do engineering. Right. I was I think from year 9 onwards, I heard that was going to be a good job, and I was like, cool, I will do that. I'll stick to that, and I'll work towards that. And so, my subjects more or less pointed to that. I got a scholarship coming out of uni, went to study engineering at a university here in Melbourne, and very soon had quite an awakening experience at a youth camp I was serving on. God kind of being like, you've been serving me for a while. I've been in ministry in a volunteer capacity probably since I was 12, 13-ish. And I had this moment where God very clearly said to me, in all of this consideration for what you're going to do vocationally, your potentially your calling in life, did you bring me into the conversation at all?
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I look back on now and I'm like, why didn't I? And then That's where I think the real twists and turns of my road into ministry really got started, because it wasn't like I initially felt this incredible booming voice call towards pastoral ministry.
And then you jump straight into it or something.
Totally.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, cool. I need to be a pastor. Here's a role, let me apply. It was very much of God shaping me and showing me that I can use my skills and giftings for the kingdom.
That's good.
And so initially what that looked like was I had some passions in graphic design and in kind of the media space. So I swapped degrees. I did that, got a job at New Hope, the faith community where I serve at now, in the media graphic design department, and kind of just started working there and serving the kingdom from that aspect. I then sought to do more of that, and towards the end of that degree, got a job at the Baptist Union, working alongside Ukimi, doing comms for the wider union. And then more and more, I had experiences where I felt God kind of prompting me and telling me, this isn't the end plan. Like, this has been a road that I have intentionally taken you on to show you that you can use your giftings. The lead that I'm taking you to for this next season is to be a pastor. And felt a really strong sense in my spirit that's what I should step into. And I had no idea what that would look like. And you know, when some things just line up in a way that you're like, I could never have orchestrated that myself. And so had this experience of my own spirit. Then was like, I should set up a meeting with my senior pastor, have a conversation about this, see, like, does he see anything in this space? Am I going, like, let's get some discernment going. Booked a meeting. He was currently on a long service leave, and so the meeting was in like 5-6 weeks' time. In that 5 or 6 weeks, our current youth pastor had decided that it was time for him to finish up and hand over in that space. And so all these conversations kind of lined up with me applying for a new role, being successful in that role, and then stepping into vocational pastoral ministry. So, very much the doing some volunteering stuff, but then having a bit of a U-turn very early on in life to change directions.
And I love that. I reckon there's a lot of people that experience that sort of charging off into a direction. Engineering, you know, even comms, you know, whatever it is, like that we think we know where we're going, and then God's like, maybe there's some other things he has in store for you. That's cool.
Yeah. And I think that there's more acceptance these days in that you might change careers. I think we're more open to that as a concept in society now. I think that there's some interesting stats that, you know, 50 odd years ago you had one job, one company, you were loyal, and that was the thing that really mattered. Whereas I think they say these days you might have 6 or 7 careers.
Not just jobs.
Jobs, roles, careers. And so more and more I think we're open to how that moves. And I think in the Christian world, when we are people of faith, that we recognize God has a calling in our life, how do we listen and be attentive to how do I respond to that in any given season?
Yeah, that's good. That's so good. Yeah, really cool.
What about you, Kim? So you've been in ministry for a number of years now. What is that?
We don't need to say how many. You don't need to make me sound old. What was that number of years?
I've been in ministry for a number. We've all been in ministry for a number of years.
It's just a whole lot of ways to call someone old. No, I have. I've clicked over 20 years in ministry, in vocational ministry now. But my pathway in was, I think we call it a transitioning professional, because I did have kickstart my career as a teacher. Wanted to be a teacher all my life. Got into teaching and taught in 2 different schools. But I all of my life involved in church, like super involved in church. I remember, I think I was in year 8 when I was like the coordinator of the crèche, which is like the preschool. Like,
wow, there you go.
Like, but
put the 14-year-olds in charge.
Right. It was a different era there. I'm not sure, quite past muster now. But so always involved in church camps, directing camps, leading camps, like, you know, really immersed in that environment. But it wasn't until my senior pastor, I was kind of in a bit of a transition time personally, and was just serving in the local church that I was part of. And he called me in for a meeting. And he said, there's 2 things going on here. He said, one is we think, we sense as a leadership that God's really calling us to have an emphasis on generational engagement in our church. They'd just been through a fairly significant, difficult time, and if we're going to grow and flourish and be healthy again, it's going to be because we embrace the family. And then over here we've got you, and we think you have the gifts and skills, and we sort of think you're the perfect person to step into a role that we're going to make for you, kind of thing. And I was just
how did that feel in the moment to have your senior pastor, like, calling a meeting to the senior pastors' office is a bit like the principals?
Yeah, I was a little bit concerned.
Yeah.
But it was, the thing that I reflect on is literally until that very moment that he said that, I had never considered vocational ministry, like never. And I mean, within 30 seconds of being in vocational ministry, I'm like, this is what I was made, like, this is where I've been heading all my life. But I think there's a couple of things about that. I had never seen a female pastor, like, in the churches that I was part of. So I don't think I had that modelling of that being a potential job, or career. And also I was in a lot of smaller churches. I don't think any of the churches I grew up in even had associate pastors, like of any kind, let alone female. So I just didn't have, like, it was just all volunteer. It's all serving, and that was sort of more the mindset. But then in the moment I had what I likened to the Moses experience, when he's before the burning bush. And God says, I've heard the cry of my people. I've seen their distress, and I'm sending you. And so now go. And he has this, like, list of, but, what if I don't know what to say? Like, what would I say? And what if they don't believe me? And what would I do then? And my learning from Moses, though, is he took that a little bit too far, because he says, please send somebody else. And then it says the Lord's anger burned against Moses.
Ouch.
Yeah. I'm like, I want to stay away from that. Like, that doesn't sound pleasant. So I said yes. And I don't know that I really knew what I was saying yes to, God, mostly. And if God was in this, then I was willing to follow him.
What did that initial role look like for you?
It was I think it was 2 days a week or 2.5, kids and youth coordinator.
Yeah.
So stepped into just overseeing those, and right away sort of just trying to get a sense of what's already happening in there, and who we had and what they were doing. And then I did some extra study. So I went and did a postgraduate degree and in theology, and added some days and added some experience and added some more training. And so ultimately I was in that role for nearly 15 years.
Yeah, wow.
But by the end of it, my title and portfolios and everything had changed. I was an associate pastor for Generations and Church Life was my thing. It was basically whatever no one else wanted, got put into that little category because it's very broad, church life. But crazy journey. And then I've been in this role at the Baptist Union, so in the denominational role for just coming up 6 years. So a very different story to yours, right? Like the welcome to ministry. But I don't know if you can relate to this. Having been around church all my life, having served in all sorts of spaces, I showed up on the first Monday of employment.
Yep.
And I sat in an almost empty office, and I was like, I don't know what to do.
Yes, where do I start? How do oh my gosh, the flashbacks.
I was just like, I know how to do Sunday morning ministry. I know how to do, like, events. I know how to be with the young people, but what do you do on a Monday?
It's a very interesting transition from being a key leader in a ministry program context to being the person responsible for potentially the vision, coordination, team building of that ministry, right? Like, it's a very different kettle of fish. And it's often the people who are raised up in the program, who know how to do the program things, that
get the call up,
that end up making the leap. And then suddenly we feel like we're out of our depth.
Yeah, because there's a whole lot of other things that come with a paid role.
Yeah.
That are other requirements and things that there are expectations that are there. So we're talking to a whole breadth of different pastors and leaders who are listening to this. And I would imagine that there's heaps of different stories of how you were welcomed to ministry. Like, people that come directly from, a high school kind of youth thing into whatever role it is. It could be worship or,
Yeah.
other spaces as well. Or there's people like myself who is a bit later in life and, a bit more career and experience and training and things under your belt. And like every other version of stepping, the number of people I talked to who took up a role because they were just filling in.
Yes, like they seeing the need
Yeah.
and feeling that heart posture.
Yeah.
And I think that serves ministry leaders really well.
Yeah.
Is having that posture of being a servant
Yeah.
is great. But it does mean that at some point when things start settling in and you've got to, now get a job description, figure out what's going on, like suddenly all this stuff shifts a little bit. And it's a very interesting journey into the space.
And I do think that your journey in will certainly shape those early years of how you establish yourself in the role, because each pathway has with it its own benefits and blessings and challenges that are innate in that. Like I think we've talked before about people who, like yourself a little bit, where you grow up in a ministry and then you step in as suddenly you're like the grown up in charge, but you've been the other kid just running around with everybody, and suddenly now respect me, I'm an adult because I'm the leader of these people apparently.
Yet the parents are going there, isn't that the 15-year-old that like got stuck and broke the lift? Like what's going on there?
Hang on, it's got stuck and broke the lift. There's a story there.
Got stuck in a lift. It was a youth night. I'll tell the story quickly. It was a youth night. You know when you hop in a lift with your friends
Just because you've been silly.
Just because it's been a bit silly. And I, as a joke, said, don't jump. We might get stuck. And then everyone around me jumped.
Adam.
And we got stuck.
No.
And this is the worst part of the story. So you've got to get like an elevator repair person to come out.
There's probably not a heap of those.
No, there's not. And so there was, because it was after hours as well, there was someone on their way to someone stuck in a lift out. I think at like Werribee Way or something. But because we were minors, they had to change direction and come to us to get us out.
Because you're an emergency.
We're an emergency. And so we're in the lift being like, oh no, this is like the worst. We should contact Channel 7 News. Children stuck in the lift. Kind of probably putting a little bit more to the back of our minds that we probably were the ones that caused this.
Yes, right. We're not the victims here.
We're not the victims here. And then, the repairman comes and it's very clear the sensors have gone off. They've jumped. It's our fault. And we've got to, that's you wear that badge for a little bit.
Yes. But anyway.
Sorry.
That guy.
That guy
is the one that, as you say, now I'm the grown up. Now I'm the responsible
for your children. And there's especially in some of the generations context. I know we're speaking to pastors who in all
Variety
sorts of
roles,
parts of ministry, but especially in the generations context, like parents care about their kids. I don't know if you're aware of this yet. Parents love their
Apparently
children.
it matters to them.
And when it comes to a ministry setting, probably in a bit of an over-exaggerated way, they have a lot of expectations on the ministry leader to wear a lot of the discipleship and spiritual upbringing of that child, because we're the in quotation marks trained professionals who are going to have the tough conversations, who are going to teach them how to read the Bible, who are going to model the way.
We're going to fix their kids.
Yes, and to some extent, we do
try,
have a heart to disciple and to do that, but we're not the primary spiritual caregiver.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those early lessons that we learn in ministry is, how much is actually mine to do?
Yeah.
What's someone else's to do? What's personal discipleship? And what's God's to do? Like, how can I have a posture of prayer in whatever I'm doing? How can I know where I can have influence and help disciple and grow some young people, and not be caught up in, or Johnny's not reading his Bible every night, I must be failing as a pastor.
Yeah, how you measure that, But so lots of different stories about the Welcome to Ministry. We'd love to hear
Yes.
people's stories, and because it's always encouraging just to see how God works at doing that. And as I said earlier, each pathway into ministry comes with its own set of circumstances that need to be managed and need to be navigated, whether that's positive or negative. Moving from another country, another state, another town, and coming in as a stranger has its pros and cons. Growing up in a ministry space and stepping into vocational role has its pros and cons, because there's institutional knowledge and all these other things that are part of it.
But change where you're suddenly everything you've learned and been working towards, it's not wasted skill. You'll still use it in some capacity, but suddenly everything is a bit different. Now I've got to start again a little bit, and I imagine the personal anxiety in that space can be very tricky to navigate.
It was my experience that when it wasn't very long into my ministry life, where a number of circumstances happened where my previous learning and my previous experience really was needed for that moment, that I was the right person to be having that conversation because I taught grade 2 5 years ago. That there was moments where you could just see all of the elements of my life up till then being utilised in that space. And I feel like it felt a bit meandering to get there, but when you turn around and look back, it's like a dead straight line, that everything was leading to that. That has been my experience of looking back on how God tends to lead us, I think. Look, as you're doing it, it might feel a bit uncertain and, as I say, meandering, but he knows what he's doing.
Kim, what would be your encouragement for people who might be in a position similar to you, where they've had a conversation with a ministry leader or their senior pastor who has seen something in them, who's calling out something in them in terms of the discernment process for how do I...
Yeah. For me, having someone externally call that out of me, name that, having it then affirmed by the church that appointed me, that was very significant for me as I moved forward in my ministry, because the moments where I doubted myself, I trusted them.
Yep.
Because they're people that I really respect. They're people who I know listen to God. They're wise, and they're saying that maybe this is for me, and I have some capacity that sets me up to develop into those roles. And so that sense of external call was actually really powerful for me. And so I think if it's somebody that you trust and they're people whose wisdom you respect and value, I think it's a great thing to listen to what others have to say and what God might be saying to you through others. And also I feel like I just said yes to a very unknown journey or adventure. I just said yes to God and then worked out what that yes might mean. And I don't think a lot can go wrong in terms of being just on the yes journey with God. And it might not be what you think. It doesn't make it easy. Like, it doesn't make it smooth sailing. But there's nowhere else you want to be than in the centre of God's will. And so if yes heads you in that direction, then it's worth a shot.
That's really cool. I think that's a really inspiring thing, that in whatever stage we are in our ministry journeys of, and I know we're talking very much in the lens of vocational ministry in this podcast, but to remember to come back to that initial yes that we said to God, and that is our framework. It's like, we're doing this for the kingdom, not for our own egos or whatever. I know that for me personally, that's something that I've got to constantly come back to and check myself with. It's a very interesting road as you step into ministry, and we're really excited to be taking this journey with you all.
We are, and we've got a whole lot of things that we think are valuable to unpack in terms of some skills and some awareness, some language, some encouragement, some scary stuff, some challenging stuff, some affirming stuff, and we are looking forward to unpacking that in coming episodes as we keep having this conversation.
So good. Well, it's been great to be chatting with you this week. We'll see you soon.